a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world. Wait for it, one ohm at a time. Now, our second Thursday of the month is traditionally a guest Thursday, and this is no exception, except for this is last Thursday of the month of April's Lori and me guest segment that we do at the end of the month, because we decided we would make the end of the month the middle of the month because we just want to keep you on your toes. Because it's better that we keep you on your toes than you're stepping on our toes. That's how I look at it. So my first exciting news is that we have Lori Powers Otto, who is here co-hosting with me, as she always does, at least one Thursday of the month. I don't know whether she's going to come back at the end of the month and bless me twice. I'm certainly hoping so, because it's always a blessing when I have her on the show. I don't know if we're going to see her at the end of the month or not. I'm waiting for her. I'm going to put her on the spot, which is what I love to do, and I'll ask her right on air, and then Lori and I'll catch up, and then we're going to introduce tonight's guest, who will be thrilling you, chilling you, and getting you ready for the memorial barbecue. I have no idea how that's going to fit in with anything to do with tonight's guest, but I will figure out a way, because I always do. Lori, how are you?
I am wonderful, Dr. Kevin. I am just wonderful. Always happy to be with you. And you don't have to put me on the spot. I fully intended to be here in 2 weeks, back with you, in your company.
Woman, the cockles of my heart. What a girl you are.
I think everybody knows by now that I just love you. So what can I say?
Yeah, we just won't tell your husband or my husband. Actually, my husband loves you, so he's always like, "When are we going to see Lori again? We need to come up to dinner again."
I think our husbands, they're good with our relationship. I think it's all good.
Yeah, I think it's all good. So I'm going to share something with you quick, because I know we want to move to our guest, because she's got lots to share and say. But I have to tell you, I'm usually okay with Mercury retrogrades. I mean, I just kind of plan for the bumps. My natal astrology chart, Mercury's retrograde. So I actually do really well with Mercury retrogrades. This one, in the last 36 hours, has been kicking my butt from here to Toledo, Ohio, and back again, and it went back via Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Wow.
I have to tell you, I started doing a thought for the day. And so every day I've been putting out a thought for the day through the Dr. Kevin Facebook fan page. So if you're looking for those thoughts for the day, it's a little video. You've seen them. I know you comment on them.
Yep.
And for our listening audience, you can always go to My Dr. Kevin on Facebook. That's the fan page. And I put up this little, interesting conversations. I would like to think so. And so I went to put out one yesterday, and I was all fired up, and it's about unity. And it's about Unite for Equality. And I'm wearing my Unite for Equality shirt, and I'm just I'm feeling it, and I'm ready to go. But a new camera has arrived, which I wanted to use because it's supposed to be a better camera. A new mic has arrived. I want to use it because it's a mic. I decided I needed to do it on my laptop, and I've been doing them on my iPhone because I wanted to shift something and could not get it to work at all. Could not get it to work. And so I had to start with clients. So I didn't get a thought of the day I'd done yesterday because I didn't finish till 10 o'clock last night with clients once I started, clients and meetings. So I'm like, Okay, so today I have to go and make my amends. And instead of doing what I was going to do yesterday, I did a Mercury retrograde. I don't know if you've seen it or not. But yes, no, I'm sorry.
Not yet today, because I've just been so busy. Hey, this is my first time really sitting down for a minute.
Yeah. Well, if you want a good laugh, watch this, because I am hysterically funny, because I go to use the camera and I realize I've left the cover on the camera, but I don't know that the camera has a cover. So I'm trying to figure out why it's black while I'm on there live and everything else. But not only as I'm putting everything together to try to do this and finally get all of the right pieces plugged in and found and blah and blah, and then finally, like, I'm getting ready to start it and my nose starts bleeding. I'm like,
no.
what the heck? And I have to get my nose to stop bleeding. And I'm running up against clients again. I'm like, I got to do this. And I found out the night before that the live that I thought never happened was still going 12 hours later, never shut off.
Oh, no.
So I had to figure out how to shut it off and reset everything. So I was like, blah, blah, blah. And so I have these beautiful backdrops. You've been watching the backdrops, right? And I'm trying to change them up a little bit, something like this. I'm in the middle. I'm finally like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I turn around and I hit the backdrop and my whole backdrop falls down. So I was jazzed when I did that one today. If you are looking for a laugh your butt off, it goes on for about 7 minutes. I swear it's a stand-up comedy routine. So how are you, Miss Lori? And when you finish telling us how fabulous you are, I'll have you introduce tonight's guest, who hopefully hasn't hung up yet. I have that effect on people sometimes.
Oh, please not. I am doing well. Very excited about Sunday night when we do our psychic circles through New Hampshire Metaphysical, you and I and some others. I'm very excited about that. But I am super excited, of course, for tonight's guest. I've known, Kathryn, how long have we known each other? A long time. Our guest
certainly tonight, sort of early in Norm's psychic fairs.
It was before that. My very first fair, Elizabeth Foley Fair, Lauren Rainbow invited me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Long time.
I guess Norm, being the big personality he was, kind of superseded that in my mind.
Yeah. But,
Norm have personality? Are you talking about the same Norm I know?
Oh, yes, he did. But Norm is not our guest tonight. Kathryn Samuelson is our guest. And you guys are going to love Kathryn. She's amazing and awesome. I mean, she is highly attuned. She's just spot on so many things. And I can tell you this from personal experience because this is how Kathryn and I met. We were doing the fair I talked about, and I was brand new, so I didn't know anybody there. And I walked past her, and she said, "Can I do a reading for you?"
Did I do that?
You sure did. And I said, sure. I sat down, and you started writing out my spirit animals. And you said, and the first spirit animal, I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, this is a long time ago, but your first spirit animal is a hawk, and its name is Otto. And I about fell off my chair. That's Otto being my last name. And hawk has been a spirit animal of mine for years and years and years, but no one had ever said it to me, you know. And then we talked about other spirit animals. We got talking, and we've pretty much been friends ever since.
Yes, but, indeed. And I want to say that you are excellent. Kevin is excellent. And it's really a pleasure to talk to the two of you because I moved to Vermont, so I don't see you very regularly or at all.
Right. But so, Kathryn, tell people what you do because you can word it way better than I ever could.
Well, one thing I do is
I've got a
coaching.
question. I've got a question for you, though, Kathryn. In your bio, it says that you help people with some kind of loss, right? That's what you do. So,
it's one of the things.
I've had, and I'm going to let you talk about all the other things. I have just in the last few days had a loss. It's been the loss of my mind. Can you help me through this?
Possibly not.
Oh, gee whiz. Okay, go ahead. Tell us all the fabulous things you do. I will stop interrupting. Go ahead.
So first thing, of course, is I'm also a life coach, and I used to practice law, and that actually helps me in that and the channeled angel readings because it helps me to listen. I learn to listen. I learn to ask pertinent questions. But the channeled angel readings I do through automatic writing, and no, I won't ever provide it to the client because they write over and over and over in the same spot, and it's not readable to the client, but it's my gateway, and it's how I know what they're wanting to provide guidance for. So it could be on health, even though I'm not a physician, and you should always check with, your healthcare providers, transitions, people who've passed over. I'm not a medium, but we can ask about them. Life path. There's a whole range of things, and people will say, I have a weird question, and I always say, you're talking to a psychic. There is no weird question.
Right? I mean, how weird can it be? We've probably much heard everything that's out there.
I always tell them, well, so I got a weird answer. Go for it.
Right. Let's see who can out weird who. You go.
Hey, now that's my kind of contest.
I knew this was going to be fun.
So is there more you want to share? Because I've got a couple of questions, but I want to make sure that our audience hears about all of your fabulosity. And remember, it's a live call-in show, so if you have questions for Lori, Kathryn, or myself, you can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057, and we will bring you in and let you ask your questions. So tell us more about your fabulosity before I start pelleting you with questions in between Lori's questions.
Well, I occasionally write poetry, and I still knit sometimes, and I live in beautiful, beautiful Vermont, and the energy here is amazing, and I think it feeds my soul. And I try to pass on that to clients, what I've learned, what the universe is providing, and try to do it with calm. I think I bring calmness to clients because people can be really agitated, and I try to help them get through that.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, you are very peaceful, very calm.
It's taken a lot of work.
Well, even since you moved out to Vermont, that you're right. It just totally centered you and brought you peace.
So, Kevin, what have you got for me?
What kind of so what part of Vermont do you live in?
I live in the White River Junction area, right across from Hanover and Lebanon, New Hampshire.
I used to live there. So that is an old stomping ground of mine. I know it well. There's a lot of things that you offer and ways in which you work with people, and I get that. I know Lori gets that. I at this point, when people ask me about psychic readings, I just go, I call them everything psychic. It's like, well, whatever you need is what I'm going to do. So just shut up and sit down. But we all have our favorite things, or the things that seem to call us, or that seem and they shift and change over the years. What would you say are the things that you are finding are showing up that are either the most meaningful for you, that are showing up in your practice these days?
Certainly a lot about health. And again, as I said, you should always check out their guidance with somebody you trust. And people wanting to transition, to move, to do something different. And it really brings me happiness, contentment to help people figure out their path. and where they should be going from here.
So you like to tell people where to go.
You could say that, I suppose. The formerly practicing lawyer might define it differently.
Well, I find that interesting, and I did want to actually comment on that. But I completely get it, because, I have to say every time I sit down with somebody, no matter what they're sitting down with me for, part of my opening is, though I'm a doctor, I am not a medical doctor. I cannot diagnose, I cannot prescribe it. Any and all information I get is intuitive in nature. Because, it's the Dr. Kevin show. Everything's my Dr. Kevin, and I always have to make sure, even if I know they know it, that it's clear, it's out there. I'm a medical intuitive, and I'm just talking about the energies I get from your body, and you get to do what you want with it. So I really appreciate that, and that is the lawyer in you showing.
It doesn't go away.
And I think that you made I always said that one of the things that helped me do spiritual coaching, counseling, and catalyst work was my years in being in business and being in human resources and developing training programs and management programs and but listening to employees, listening to needs and all that business stuff wrapped back in. And I had not thought about it before, but the same thing with being a lawyer, I can see how that would give you a lot of skill sets that could add a whole level of power to the work you do. What do you think is... Go ahead. Yes? Go ahead. No, go ahead. I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah, it does. Again, to go back to what I said, is that it provides listening skills, it provides problem solving, it provides questioning, the proper questions to ask.
Okay, we're going to our first commercial break. We will be right back with Lori Powers Otto and Kathryn Samuelson and talk about what she sees coming up in the future of humanity.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hello. Today on the Dr. Kevin Show, it is the Dr. Kevin and Lori Powers Otto Show, as we have it once, sometimes when we're lucky twice a month, like May is lucky. And today's guest is Kathryn Samuelson. She is a former lawyer. I'm assuming it's former lawyer now. You could still be practicing law, but it didn't sound like it. Yeah. Life coach. She takes her innate compassion, her intuitiveness, and she helps people undergoing transition in their lives, whether it's a move, a career change, or a loss of some kind. She likes to hang out with your angels and guides, and she likes to doodle on a piece of paper that no one will ever be able to read. But her will tell you what your angel said to you. Ta-dum.
I said, what did you say, Kevin? It faded out a bit on the Dr. Kevin. What did it faded out a bit at the end?
I said that only she can read about what your angel said to you, and I went, ta-dum. I do want to apologize to all of the listeners today. If I do cut in and out a little bit, I have been having, as you heard at the beginning of the show, a lot of intimate and intense moments with Mercury retrograde. And I'd like to tell it where to go right now, just like Kathryn would like to tell her clients where to go. But it has been playing with both my phones. Lori, I got another question I want to get out before I get cut off completely. Talk to me about your poetry. Do you write a lot of it? Is it out there available for buying?
No, it's just something I do from time to time, and every once in a while it'll wake me up in the middle of the night or as I'm going to sleep, and I go, okay, I have to write you down, and it'll tell me its title. There was one that ended up insisting that it be called Mapped, and the poem had nothing to do with my life. It's like, so it's floating out there in the ether, and it wants to be written down. Okay, you chose me. You'll probably never see the light of day. It's just something I do from time to time. But one of my favorite poems was called The Poetic Visitation Upon Going to Sleep, about words and being like smoke and air, and when the words aren't mine, I know that it's some muse or word witch laughingly going on her way.
Yeah. You will receive this message and you will write it down. And you'll do it now. Yeah, Dr. Kevin and I never gotten that happen when we're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Or if you have to download, can't you download after I go to sleep?
Right. Yeah. Or
sending me all these images, I don't have no clue what they're about, but I guess they're about something,
Yeah. Always pretty awesome.
Yesterday morning, I'm sitting there with my husband, and I said, and I had my phone, and we're talking, and I said, I'm just trying to order my day because I have a lot of moving pieces, so I'm trying to figure out the best order. But I just want to order my day. As soon as I said that, a whole poem came through, and I was just like, I said, stop. And he just kind of looked at me. I'm typing as fast as I can on my notepad. And like 2 minutes later, I have this whole poem about ordering my day and the capriciousness of May and how she won't be ordered. And it's just like, wow. And 3 minutes later, I'm continuing my conversation. I write a lot of poetry. I think I might my 5th poetry book coming out this month. So
who do you publish with?
Lightlines Publishing. So, yeah, and, I would say to you, if you're ever interested, I missed the last couple because of coordination issues, but the last Thursday of the month, when it's a 5-Thursday month, I do a Power of Poetry, and I'll invite another poet to come on, and we'll bounce back and forth sharing poems we wrote.
That would be lovely. That would be fun.
And sometimes I can even convince Lori to show up and join in the merrymaking or stuff like that. But if you'd like to do that, love to have you.
I just pulled up the poem that I mentioned. If you have, it's very brief. Would you like me to read it?
Go ahead. Sure.
Words writ upon the skin do not explanations make or sorrows erase. So I shall not write them there, but rather put them here and there to evaporate as smoke rising in the air. Words that rest briefly upon the tongue, shelter in the brain, merely as if pausing, creating phrases too elegant to be from my mind, then I know I've been visited for amusement's sake by a muse or possibly a word witch going laughingly on her way.
Nice.
Thanks. And basically, it seems to be your experience too, Kevin, is it came fully formed.
Yeah, it's very rare. You know, I have your experience with song. Is I'll get something and I'll realize I'm listening to music. I'm hearing music, and I realize that I'm forming a song in my head instead of a poem. And that's always a much more interesting journey, because song lyrics and poetry lyrics can be not so different, or can be very different. But it's like I can feel the energy difference when it's forming in me. It's like, oh, this is a song.
I mean,
yeah, that's fun.
Songs are literature, just like poems. We'll look at Bob Dylan, who got the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then couldn't be bothered to show up to pick it up.
Well, I mean, he is Bob Dylan.
Yeah. I'm sure he could have rearranged his schedule. I'm sure people would have understood. But that's not about me or you or Lori.
Right.
It's about Bob. What about Bob? Oh, sorry. So, Lori, I'm now going to shut up. What engage with our lovely guest? What questions would you like to ask her? It's tough because you've known her for a long time, but what do you think would be great questions that she could answer for our audience?
Well, Kathryn, I think, for one, we need to tell people how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
So if you can share your contact details, but, give us an example of how you would work with a life coaching client.
Okay,
how does
first
that?
I'll give you the info. And it's for my website, it's KathrynSamuelson.com, and it's KathrynSamuelson. And my email is klsamuelson@yahoo.com. And my cell phone is 781-799-7332. The first thing I do with a potential client is just have a do we want to work together session. What do you want to accomplish? And is it a good fit for the two of us? Because it may or may not be. And then once we do that, and that's a free session, because I don't feel comfortable charging for one of us to then say, nah, this isn't going to work. It just doesn't seem fair. So it's basically, I know there are life coaches who have certain processes, but mine is based on what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, do you know what you want to accomplish? And if you do, let's figure out steps of how to get you there. And then, as life happens, encourage them to say, okay, I didn't accomplish the homework, because I give homework, because life happens, and that's okay. But let's get back to a new schedule and just keep them going. I have a client who was dealing with grief and not sure what she wanted to do, and so she had all these boxes that she'd packed up and moved, and the first box she opened was photos from where she used to live, and it was like, oh, I want to move back there. So we worked on getting her back there. Then we worked on, different pieces. So I view it as a very fluid process, because nothing is written in stone, and it's okay if you change your mind. And I also work with people to change their language, so that you can change their story.
Yeah.
And see themselves differently. So that's about as comprehensive I can be, because it is, for me, a fairly fluid process.
As for myself, every client is individualized. I don't have a specific formula, because size doesn't fit all, and that sounds like that's what you do. I do charge for the initial consultation, because I spend at least an hour and a half, 2 hours on the initial one, really getting to know people. But like you, I realized that some people think they want something when really they want something else. And they have to do the work to come around to that conclusion. I think for all three of us, maybe not Dr. Kathryn, I don't tell people you must do anything, right? That's the quickest way to get someone to sabotage themselves.
Right, but when I say give homework, it's getting a process of where are you and what do I suggest that you do next so that you can continue this journey. And there are times it doesn't happen, and I don't give people a hard time if it doesn't happen, you know? Figure out, if it's not happening, like, where's the resistance coming from?
Right. I also give homework, but you only get so many shots of not doing the work before I will cut you off. Because if you're not willing to invest in yourself,
right,
I'm not going to take your money. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people who would take your money even if you're not doing the work, and that's not fair to anybody. That's just bad karma. But I like
for me it's more, I'm sorry, for me it's more, okay, you worked on these 3 things that we agreed you should work on, you want to work on, but the 4th didn't happen because of life, If it's nothing, well, that you're right, then that's not good.
Exactly. Because sometimes things do come up, but you figure out the why, right? Like I had a client that was really resistant to doing one thing, and when I asked him why, it was because he didn't want to have to look at that aspect of himself.
That's when I would send him to suggest he'd see a therapist.
No, well, I don't do that, but I do. We try to come at it from a different angle, or just to figure out what the resistance is.
Well, and speaking of, suggesting somebody see a therapist, I had a client who, because of childhood trauma, and what I said to her was, I can support you in your journey, but I cannot help you with this. This is something you need a therapist for. Because it was dealing with the emotional piece of this childhood trauma. So I try to be very careful about boundaries at times.
And understandable.
I'm questioning whether I should weigh in here or not. Depends on whether we want to upset the apple cart or we should just move on to another conversation.
It's up to you, Dr. Kevin.
Up to you.
Well, so, the spiritual coaching, counseling, and catalyst work I do, oftentimes for me, starts with a psychic reading. I tell people, I start with what is in your highest and best good. What is Spirit telling me you most need to work on? And then we add whatever they want to work on. But I try very early on to bring up what there may be a resistance to, or they may not even be aware of. And kind of I won't give people memories, but if I go, I'm getting a lot of energy around this unresolved issue that's feeling like it's playing out in a lot of areas in your life, and I try to use a combination of, I got this friggin' intuitive, I might as well use it.
Right.
You're coming to me because I'm not a traditional therapist, because having that degree does not mean that you are any good at it. But a lot of the work I do is trench work. I mean, at any given time in my practice, I'm dealing with people that are cult survivors, abuse survivors from their childhood, who are, and then of course with the medical intuitive, I'm dealing with people who have terminal diagnoses, and I'm like, well, you choose to own that or not. But there may be another way to look at it. So,
that's very interesting, Dr. Kevin. I think it has to do with my own comfort level and where I'm willing to go. I am willing to go to the health guidance, but maybe because I have a sister who's a psychologist and a sister who's a social worker, I have a little bit firmer boundaries around emotion, psychological issues. But I think this is a good thing to talk about because everybody is different. Even with psychics, our gateways are different. How we enter into and connect with the guidance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you should explain to people what this automatic writing that you do is, because it is fascinating.
I don't even use a pen anymore because there's no point in use. I use something. It's my gateway. And I came up with that term from reading Sally Kempton's book, Meditation for the Love of It, where she talks about everybody has a different gateway into meditation. And some people's gateway is psychometry, some is tarot or other cards, some is, sheerly clairvoyance. For me, and it's probably because I spent so much time as a lawyer writing.
It could be. That makes sense.
Could be. I take something that I could use as a writing implement, put it to, a surface, and just connect with the angels and guides, and they take over and move my hand. I clearly am not in control.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. It is pretty amazing. It is amazing.
And as they write, it comes into my mind. And that's how I'm able to provide, clients guidance. And I can say, having had the pleasure of having a reading from Lori, it's wonderful. Maybe someday we'll do a reading. I'll have a reading with you, Kevin.
Absolutely. We're going to be back in just a minute. We're taking our last break of the radio show here on the Dr. Kevin Show on OMTimes, and we'll be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show here on the second week of May in 2022. I am here with my semi-regular co-host, Lori Powers Otto, and with Kathryn Samuelson. You can find out Kathryn's contact information by going to the Dr. Kevin Show on Facebook, on our fan page, the Dr. Kevin Show fan page. We have a full bio about her. We have a website link that you can click and go right to her website. It is KathrynSamuelson.com. But, sometimes spelling of names are tricky, and we all talk faster than we should at times, or at least I always do. And so you can always go to the Dr. Kevin Show Facebook fan page, like the page, ask a question, get a connection. And Kathryn, if you want to go to the page yourself, and put any other additional contact information like we didn't have in our write-up, your email address or anything else, feel free to do that so that people will be able to send you an email. Well, they probably can do it from your website, but just the invitation's there.
So just to be clear, it's my Kevin. The fan page.
So it's the Dr. Kevin Show.
Oh, okay.
It's the fan page. So yes, and I want to actually comment on the automatic writing thing. Oftentimes, like I always do a protection and an intention statement when I open up. You do automatic writing. Lori, when you're getting ready to do a session, what's your prep look like?
I do a prayer to myself, and then I connect to my clients' spirit guides, ancestors, etc. And I just tell them what they put in my head, what they show me, what I hear, what I smell, what I see. I just, but it starts with a prayer. I always start any session or any event with protecting myself and anybody that I come in contact with.
The reason I was asking, and the comment I wanted to make is that I think that oftentimes it's spending a long time, because I've been in business for 32 years now doing this, which is really hard when you're only 29. Those readings that were pre-womb, they were some tough readings, that sometimes it's about engaging into a semi-hypnotic state, the intellect, which can so often be the gatekeeper for the intuitive. And when you were talking, I was like, okay, so she starts that writing, which is very familiar, and clicks into all of those, like all of the hours you spent writing, but it clicks in that intellect, and then boom, in slides on home plate for a home run, all of that psychic information. And I could be wrong, and that's why I asked you, but I do find that sometimes we, even that have been doing it for a long time and don't have any question about our abilities, I'm assuming neither one of you have questions about your abilities. I don't have questions about your abilities. I don't have questions about my abilities, but then again, we know I'm spiritually arrogant. So, that we still have that brain. And sometimes we just need to give the brain something to do to get it out of the way. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think that might have any validity to it?
I'm sure that's a lot of it for me. It also gives me a comfort that I'm not making it up, And sometimes the things that come out of my mouth, I'm like, where the heck, thinking mentally, I don't say it out loud, where the heck did that come from?
Oh, yeah, the things that come out of my mouth, I'm like, that's, and I tell them that is not me talking. That is whoever talking.
And I will tell clients, just a second, and I'll mentally double check with them, like, is this me or you? And I'll say, I just checked with them, and that's them saying it. The first time they suggested to somebody to study deep ecology, and I had never heard of it. I was like, what?
Right?
Mentally.
Yeah. It's over surprising sometimes what they have us tell people.
I always get the biggest kick when I will say a word and then I can even spell it, but then I have to look it up on Google with the client to figure out what it is. Oh, that's an herb. Oh, okay. Oh, that is a course of study. Oh, okay. Yeah, great. But I sometimes, and this is where it will interweave with the spiritual coaching, counseling, catalyst work, where I also give homework, is that I will say something and I'll go, oh, okay, now I know where we need to go. And they'll look at me and I'll go, well, I didn't know that until I heard myself say it. I'll be like, okay. But now I've heard myself say it. It fits in the middle piece and that missing piece for me to like guide you or direct you in a way. Like, so let's look over here or this sort of stuff.
And what's interesting is when a client tells you, I had a client tell me that I was more accurate than I knew, which is a really lovely validation.
Yeah, it is. Right. I know that sometimes you're saying stuff and when it seems like you're going in a bunch of different directions, and then all of a sudden it all ties together, and it's like, oh, now it makes sense. It's like the big aha moment, because we don't know these things until Spirit gives them to us. You know, and
on some level, we don't have to understand how it makes sense. It just has to make sense to the client. But sometimes I will tell the client, which I got this from James Wanless, who created the Voyager Tarot cards and some other sets, which is, if you like the reading, it's up to you to go out and make it happen. If you don't like the reading, it's up to you to go out and make it not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
love
definitely.
James. So you used to do work up in Portland, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
Where did you meet James?
I have a now out-of-print book because the self-publishing company went out of print, out of business, and it was originally designed as a set of cards, and I was doing research on publishers and came across Voyager Tarot, and I just emailed him, and he got back to me, and I was living in Melrose, Massachusetts, and doing some things with, like, now Jerry DeSimone at Circles of Wisdom when it was in Andover.
Yep.
And I had 3 or 4 readings with him.
Yep. James is a lovely man. I can't remember whether I met him when I was working through Circles or if I met him when I was working through Leaping Lizards in Portland.
He would go to both.
Yeah. And I keep in touch with him every now and then still. But it's time to take it out of mothballs. It's time to relaunch it.
Well, that would, at the moment, the money's a bit of a serious issue, so.
I'm only telling you what I heard.
Yes, well, they're going to have to provide me with some additional funding. So, because self-publishing is not cheap. Are they suggesting it be a book, or should it be cards?
So I'm hearing, and Laura, you can chime in at any point, that it will evolve out to books. I mean, that it will evolve out to the cards again. That's a step. It's a second step, but the book needs to come out, and I then intellectually know. But I'm also hearing. It's always fun. I try to always make sure I'm separating the intuitive from the intellect here, but I will comment from both, but I'll clarify. They are saying it's not what you think it is, you need to look again. And intellectually I go, it's a much different game than it was when you put those out the first time around.
Right.
So so I'm just, I just heard it in my head.
The part about it's different or it looks different than I think it is, and I'm not quite sure, because the lawyer in me was like, define that, please.
I think that there are options open that you may not be aware of that weren't available when you did it the first time.
Right, and I have looked at some things, because one of the reasons that it was limited to this particular company is there's 112 images in it. And most self-publishing companies would only do 6 or 10 images.
Yeah. I'm not getting unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to satisfy your lawyer
That's
side.
Okay.
But I definitely hear that there are avenues that are out there and that they want you to poke, because there is a way. There is interesting. They're laughing when they say this. There is a gateway. They're like,
my word comes back to haunt me.
Yes, they're like, there is a gateway, and they're saying it is a gateway, and that gateway is discoverable, but there also has to be looking at that there is some kind of energy issue you have with the books and cards that you have to resolve. And then it's going to open up and become clear to you. But right now, it feels like because of some energy issue, and I'm not getting what it is, and we're on air, and this is public, and I didn't create permission for this. So I'm doing all sorts of bad.
No, I understand what you're saying, because this last year, a little over a year ago, I misstepped from a small pile of snow and broke a wrist bone and jammed my shoulder for the third time. So this last year has been basically about healing myself physically.
Yep. There's some kind of emotional and intellectual healing around the cards.
Yeah.
That has to happen. And they referred to trying to send them out now would be like putting your child out in misfitting, ill-fitting, dirty clothes. And
right. And there's, as much as I love my book designer, she's very busy, so I would have to find a different person to reformat it. And so there's a number of issues. So I'm not saying it will never happen, Dr. Kevin, excuse me. But yeah, you're right. There's issues around it.
Yep. They say clean up the issues and everything else will show up and get provided for.
Yes.
But the issues have to come first. Lori, are you hearing or getting anything? I don't mean to hijack this.
No, I agree with what you're saying. What I'm hearing is there needs to be a revision.
Oh, I'm aware of that.
Right, but not just of the material, of your thought about the project.
Mm-hmm.
So the resistance, I feel, is coming from you,
and
it's. I hate to use the word incorrect. But that's how it feels. It feels like
the perception needs to shift.
Yeah, you need to look at it from another perspective. And there are plenty of ways, and we can talk privately or about ways to get this book back out there, and the cards. But I do feel that it is a calling, and it is a, you have free will, do it or don't. That's up to you. But I do feel that this is something that Spirit is highly urging you to do, but coming from the perspective of revision. They just keep saying revision. I hope that makes sense to you. I think I have your book, right? Yes, I do.
Right, and I wish I could claim credit for the photographs, but I can't.
Well,
I can claim credit for choosing the photographer.
Well, and as long as you give the photographer credit, you're good to go.
In fact, yes, the photographer has credit.
Yeah, and again, as Lori said, it's free will choice. It's up to you. If it's not calling to you, that's fine. Spirit's completely okay with whatever decision you make, and with a few more falls and a couple of more shoulder dislocations, it won't be a big deal. Don't do it.
Yes, I'm paying for it. My then chiropractor said, "What's this about?" And I said, "Not paying attention to my feet." It's going to be some big metaphysical thing, So as long as they're not saying tomorrow, then I'm less resistant.
Yeah, I'm not hearing tomorrow. Are you hearing tomorrow, Lori?
Not tomorrow, no. I am not hearing tomorrow.
No, I heard yesterday.
Then I'm screwed.
No, but soon is what.
This has been so much fun,
Well, we're happy to have you. Now, can people work with you? I'm assuming they don't have to live in a phone. Do you also
I do a lot of
anything
phone work.
Zoom?
And I use a system called free conference calls, so I'm able to record the session and send a link to somebody.
Yep. I'm familiar with free conference calls. Yep, that's a great way to do it. Are you doing any kind of teaching these days?
No, people keep bringing it up, and I can't figure out what I should teach.
I would suggest you do some automatic writing on that, because I feel like the answer is there.
Mm-hmm.
It just, again, there's resistance.
Yes, and getting my energy back. A lot of my energy went poof after I worked for 16 years for the county of Cook, Illinois. A small little government of 20,000 employees, extremely bureaucratic, and so it's taken me some time to recover from that. But
oh my goodness, I'm up already.
So, Kathryn, thank you for coming. Lori, thank you for coming. Next week, we're doing planetary influences. Let's find out what's going on in these stars and these skies. And Down with Mercury Retrograde with Rob Stewart from innocenter.org. That's next week here on the Dr. Kevin Show, planetaryinfluences.org. Kathryn, well, maybe have you come back and do one of the poetry segments. If you're interested, please let me know.
That would be great, and I've really enjoyed this, Dr. Kevin and Lori.
Thank you.
And Missy Lori, you know you can always hop